Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome back on this Thursday night. It's time for the third round of the RaceKraft V8 Veterans Championship in its 19th season. As after a wild race at Le Mans, we come back home, so to speak, to the Phillip Island circuit here for you this evening in Victoria, Australia. My name, Danny Raymond, back on the microphone for tonight, and joining me once again after debuting here with the Vets at least 2 weeks back for the season opener, Brant Tucker will be here with me once again. And, well, Brant, unfortunately missed you at that Le Mans race, and you definitely missed quite the wild one when it comes down to how everything went and happened, but nevertheless, looking forward to another good race here as we come back to Australia at the Phillip Island circuit. A classic circuit, that is for sure. And apologies, folks, for issues here. I can't quite hear Brant in my ear, which I presume he can't be heard by you guys as well. Looks like I might have to run with this for a second as we look at the Google Earth track map and zoom on down to Phillip Island there, just south of the Western Port Bay here in Victoria, and then down to the circuit itself on the southern edge of the island. And what a circuit this is. It's been on iRacing, if I understand my history correctly. Basically, well, it's the longest lasting, or longest existing circuit on iRacing, that is, I should say, of the Australian tracks. But great history here in 4 wheels and 2 wheels both, across motorcycle stuff and the like. So looking forward to another fantastic night. High speed, of course, around this place. Very technical, and therefore going to be a real test of the drivers here in terms of tyre management, perhaps. Well, then again, temperatures fairly favourable in the V8 Veterans. We'll talk about that, I guess, a little later. Just apologies whilst I'm working in the background.
Yes, I'm back.
Excellent. Lovely to have you, Brent. Sorry, unfortunate there. Some minor technical dramas for you there, but hopefully all good to rock and roll for the rest of the evening. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how this one goes tonight. As we'll cut from the circuit to our race information this evening. Looking at a 200k race coming our way this evening, so nothing too crazy in the grand scheme of things, but still a 45 lap race. And the other important number to care about if you're playing that game early on in the season already is that 75% race distance. 34 of the scheduled laps must be completed if the leader completes all 45, that being said, to earn championship points if you're in the hunt for that tonight. Being a shorter race, 50 litre starting fuel on the fixed setup provided by Jamie McKnight with a 100% fuel tank capacity available to the drivers here this evening. Fuel burn, Brent, little variable, somewhere between 3.3 and upwards of 3.4, 3.45 litres a lap from the data I was able to scrounge online this afternoon. So there is quite a range there as to exactly how much fuel the drivers are going to be burning tonight. It means that the data I'm about to throw up on screen in terms of possible pit strategies might be completely out of whack, because we've got ourselves a pretty healthy window in terms of fuel added and the critical lap for that second stop. But nevertheless, 2 compulsory stops, as always, here in the V8 Veterans, going to be coming their way this evening. And I'll throw that graph up on screen and behold what we might see. Of course, for a race like this, the numbers are very much completely variable, and they're just rough estimates at best.
Interesting to see 3 distinct strategies there tonight, and with that variable fuel window as well, Dan, could see some fuel saving. Extend that second stint, take that shorter stop towards the end of the race. Yeah, a lot of strategies to play out. Bummed I missed the Le Mans week. Being Le Mans, I love that track, and also by the sounds of it was one hectic race. So back, looking forward to it. And yeah, tonight should be good with, you know, if we get that early pit stop, it'll be, you know, that critical lap number of 12 or 13, as you said, pushing it right out to, you know, that lap 14, 15, all the way to lap 30 to 38. If you can make your car and your tyres and your fuel last to lap 38, it'll be a very short pit stop towards the end of the race there. Could see a few curveballs thrown tonight.
I mean, yeah, and the thing is, of course, yeah, these numbers are completely arbitrary. Apart from the early stop strat, that is pretty hard-coded in terms of the fuel. unless you're either burning a touch more or you're burning a decent chunk less. The numbers here on these graphs are based off of a fuel burn of 3.3 litres per lap. If you look to the top right of the graph section, you can see that if you go 3.25 litres a lap, not that much, it's 5 milliliters less per, or 50 milliliters less per lap on fuel, you'll be able to go an extra lap. Brings that second stop into end of lap 11. You can cut the fuel even further down, although this is now a pretty decent chunk down from 3.3 per lap to 3.16 per lap, and then you're talking being able to come in as early as the end of lap 10 and make it home. Now, maybe that's something that someone plays for if we get safety cars. Of course, that will throw these numbers completely up in the air. And the other one being is the late stop strategy, the yellow line there across the middle of the race. Lap 15 is pretty much, I expect, as far as anyone's going to go, because they'd have to really save fuel and compromise their opening stint to go longer. But for all we know, someone takes more fuel at that opening stop. They shorten that second stop up. They can even go later if they wish, of course. But the second compulsory stop, all it would need to be in that case is as little fuel as they need to get home, because all they need to do to complete the CPS requirements is go up on the jacks, Brent.
Yeah, we saw that in the first round as well. In terms of the fuel saving, it's not outside the possibility that, if the car in front of you is just that little bit quicker, you can't necessarily get by them through the corners. Sit behind them, save that fuel, utilize that draft to your advantage, and just stick behind them for that stint. And we could definitely see, people starting to push out, and especially with that, get towards that, 3.16 litres a lap window. So it's not outside the realms of possibility. But, you'd be definitely pushing the envelope, as you said there, Dan, to hit that, 3.16 and lap without, trying to cause too much harm to your lap time and overall speed.
Yeah, and the third thing to also throw into the mix is the fact that, the times listed next to the estimated pit stop are based on just the refuel amount. You also need to factor in, over to the right side of the graph, that pit transit delta value. That is the time, according to overlay software available here in iRacing, it's the time it takes at Phillip Island to come into the pits, stop on your box for a second, and then head back out again. So, got to combine those two numbers there, that 21 seconds you lose just by coming into the lane and stopping, as well as the time actually spent adding fuel and or checking tyres to get the full scope of the number today. Other thing, of course, to chat about with regards to things before the race tonight is our championship standings coming into this third race of the season. And well, I have to say, Brant, it was absolute chaos at Le Mans. And yeah, you said you missed it, unfortunately. But the other thing to also note here is that actually there's been an absolute deluge of post-race penalties that came out. And for those who aren't aware of how the penalty system works, and in fact, actually, what I'll do is I'll come back to these standings. What I'm going to do is, I was able to get this ready for last week, and we briefly talked about it either last week or we didn't even get to it, but I want to bring this up on screen actually first. So this is the penalty system that the V8 veterans use. It also roughly aligns to the penalties applied in MotoGP Pro Invitational, similar administration and such. So things to consider. But this is the main thing, is that if they can't get penalties issued during the race, they will be converted to championship points penalties, is the first thing. That section in blue. So a lot of drivers have picked up a ton. It was actually quite a lot of post-race penalties from our split one racing last week at Le Mans, unfortunately. So that massively changed how the round results and the championship worked. The second stage is the green boxes. For those offences, depending on how they're graded in the section in grey on the left of this image, they'll be assigned license points for the season. Based on where they sit in that table, the green section of the table. You rack up too many of those license points, you start talking about those penalties that are sitting in the yellow section of the table. And in fact, speaking of which, we've got two of them important to note tonight. We'll get to those in a bit. And also critically, those license points are additionally deducted from your championship standings total as well. So what that's done is, despite winning the opening two races across the line, that is, Brant, Scott Gamble is not your championship leader. He has been demoted back to third thanks to a brevy of penalties. Darren Lobb came home second at Laguna Seca for the season opener. And unfortunately, I'm a little rusty, unfortunately, as to exactly where he ended up for Le Mans. I'll get that information as soon as I can. But he now sits atop the championship table. Blake Delaney sitting behind him in second. Gamble now there, back in third place.
Championship battle looking very tight at the moment. As we go down to Chris Miller, sitting there in fourth, only 18 points off the lead. Luke Grundell for SLS sitting there in 25 points off the championship lead. 1 point difference between Luke and Stephen with 25 and 26 points off the championship lead. So really, really tight battle here. The way the penalties are applied seems to be shaking up the championship battle early on already. It will be very interesting to see what Scott can do tonight, whether or not he can go close or regain that championship lead. It is only 13 points off P1, so distinct possibility there that depending on where the other two guys ahead of him finish, he could potentially take this lead back tonight, Dan.
Certainly a possibility, Brant, but I have to tell you, if you're not aware of how the point system works, it is certainly a little restrictive on that front. Championship standings point scheme for season 19 has been with us for a couple of seasons now on screen with you here. You can see critically, you win the race, you're only getting an additional 4 points over second, who only gets an additional 2 points over third, and every place, third on back, is only worth 2 points less than that previous position you just talked about. There are several bonus points there, though, available as described at the bottom of the table. Our pole position sitter, who we'll get to in just a second, gets a bonus point. If you finish in the top 10 and you had the fastest lap of the race, you also get an additional bonus point there. You finish a race with no incident points, +2. That's a big one, obviously, because that means that's a whole free spot you get right there. Lead a lap of the race, plus a point, and lead the most laps of the race, plus an additional point as well. But keep that in mind. We'll talk about it more later in the season once the championship points really start to matter, Brant. But it's time to head to the grid as we're getting ready to get going racing here tonight for this 200k event. And speaking of bonus points, Scott Gamble gets his first of the night. Pole position goes his way here in the 9.5 SimSports 543 machine, and it will be Ken Latter alongside him in second place, quarter of a second off Gamble's qualifying time tonight. Darren Lobb, championship leader, good consistent run for him once again, getting to start him out of third place with Blake Delaney alongside in fourth. So our championship contenders really getting themselves solidly at the top end of town. Fishy Motorsports lock out row 3 with Paul Warwick in P5 ahead of Michael Whiting in P6. That's some of the better results those two drivers have gotten so far, well, career and season-wise. Jeff Thomas, decent qualifying once again, puts in P7 with Dan Hall alongside in P8 for this one here, Brant, with the top 10 going to be rounded out by Craig Friend and John Latham in the 696 and 24 machines respectively here.
As we move down to Tim Nicol for Quantum Peak, he's racing in P11. Chad Lewis sitting there, 0.003 between them in P12. Troy Stonestreet and Matt Van der Kraan bring in the P13 and P14. Steve Varga and Damien Cairns for Accelerate Sim Racing, P15 and P16. Chris Miller for another Fishy Motorsports car in P17, followed by Michael Quain in Old Mates and Sons Racing in P18. Michael Stewart and Matt Skulls round out our top 20 in P19 and P20 respectively. Dan, looking at some of these lap times, they're incredibly close together.
Indeed, the fact we've cracked the top 20 and we're still less than a second off Scott Gamble's pole time, and he had a quarter of a second on P2. The gaps are nothing here. Favell and McKnight going to start out of the 11th row here this evening for WKMP and Fishy Motorsports respectively. It'll be Mark Poynton, the first of our Frog Leap Juice Racing cars, I believe, unless I've missed Robert Christel. No, I believe he is the first Frog Leap car tonight out of P23. Chad Vigor next to the Angry Birds machines out of 24th in that 016. Christian Smart, P25, sharing row number 13 with Stewie Hall, and it looks like we are almost going to crack the 1 second marker. There we go, 26 cars inside Scott Gamble's pole time. The 1 second of Scott Gamble's pole time here tonight. It'll be Blanchard and McCune, first cars on the outside in here on the 14th row. Top 30 going to be rounded out by Scotty Van Loon and Rick Vigor, our third and final of the Angry Birds racing machines.
As we continue down the grid, Robbie Griffiths in P31 and Brendan O'Brien, a name very familiar to the supercars scene in Australia, in P32. Jason and Paul bring out our P33 and P34 on the grid. Rob Christale for Frog Leap Juice Racing, and Darren Goosey for Old Mate and Sons in P35 and P36. Damon Fisher for another Quantum Peakies Racing car in P37, followed by Dave Kirby in P38 for Fishing Motorsports. Ricky Hyde for 801 Sim Racing, and Craig Rose for OPR for 39 and P40.
And I believe that's going to be it, Brant, because, well, Craig Rose actually not in the Split 1 field tonight. Must have joined the wrong server. So it should round off with Ricky Hyde. We may have Dave Kirby. Actually, no. Apologies. I've heard Dave Kirby already say tonight, unfortunately, he's got technical problems that are throwing him for a bit of a loop, unfortunately. So we will not be seeing the 307 Fishy Motorsports machine tonight at this stage. Well, there's your drivers on Zoom tonight. We'll do our best to get to them as the racing night continues here. Jeff Thomas, Michael Stewart, Jason Fewens, and Chad Lewis. Dan Hall, there we go, just provided my camera right as we pulled away from them here. But it's time to get ready to rumble here, Brant. 45 laps, 200 kilometers here from the Phillip Island circuit, about to get underway. It's Scott Gamble who's going to lead them off from the front of that field here as we go green at Phillip Island.
The key will be getting through turn 1 and 2 cleanly as they go 3 wide down in the pack there. Scott managing to get over the nose and into the lead nice and early on as they come down into Southern Loop. The field snaking their way through this long left-hander.
So far, so good through Southern Loop. I do believe a couple of positions changing back and forth from the back of this pack. But yeah, looks like we're doing okay here as the field heads down towards turn 4. Miller corner for the first time here to get that lovely shot on the curb and then working with that 2, 3, 4 maybe wide in the middle of the pack. But looks like we're going to get through okay here as the field makes their way through the hairpin for the first time and then back out towards Siberia. Now, critically, I didn't get a chance to really touch on it here tonight, Bram. But the important thing is, oh, there is smoke off the exit of Siberia. We've got someone around. Mark Poyton's dropping down the order, something fierce in the number 29. And there he is now back in P20, lost 6 spots. Damon Fisher's just dropped a couple of spots. Yeah, numbers are definitely moving here and shaking in the opening lap. But so far, most of the field together as they work their way up and over Lukey Heights to MG for the first time on the brakes.
So light move there as the field gets very congested. Still running side by side for some of these cars. They've been together for nearly an entire lap side by side. So as we see, the 29 has a big old ding in that left-hand door panel on the Frog Leap Juice Racing Mustang there as they come down through the final corner onto that front straight with that glorious view of the ocean straight ahead.
And first lap looking pretty solidly in the books. That critically means that the compulsory pit window will open as expected at the end of this second lap of racing here tonight. But look at that there. Gamble from Lob from Ladder at the top of the field. And they've even started to break away from the cars behind there with Warwick. Jeff Thomas up to P5, looking very nice indeed. That's a couple of spots gained for the JWM SimSpeed 43. Make that another one up the inside here at Siberia. Miller corner. Siberia coming up next in a second. And oh, not quite done. Warwick wants to get into it, and Michael Whiting, teammate of Warwick there, trying to force the issue now. The inside of Siberia is his as we work our way out here. Brent, and oh, contact Warwick and Thomas in the grass, but we keep on going at least as a couple of cars make advantage. Dan Hall, one of them there in the 462. Chad Lewis as well. So it's 2 Fishies, 2 ERTs, and then poor Jeff on his own at the moment here in the 43 machine. Yeah,
poor Jeff. Coming through turn 4 there, just got the power down a little bit. Oh, big wiggle there by the Fishy car, the 520, and he actually runs off. Make sure he rejoins safely, which he does. Everyone manages to avoid him. Well done. As I was saying, the 43 got a little bit too much power down too quickly coming out of turn 4, and that really cost him going into Siberia as we saw that side-to-side contact there coming out of turn 5. So hectic there for the 43, lost a few positions, just needs to regather it. Cool head, they will prevail. It is a long race ahead.
Sure is indeed, and it can confirm that on screen for you. The compulsory pit window is now open here with 2 laps, end of lap 2 there swinging by, but looks like most drivers staying out here with the exception, I should say. We've had one driver who has taken to the lane, unfortunately. Craig Friend, the Old Mate and Sons machine, apparently logging a pit stop time good for 18. Oh, right as we've caught him, Brant, kaboom goes the engine.
I was just about to say that. That looks like some engine smoke there as we see the 696 trundling its way into pit lane. So it won't be a safety car. He'll get that back into pit lane, but that will be his night done.
Well, that's if he hasn't used up his fast repair tonight. They do have one of them available here. So Friend will take to the lane as the leader's already coming up over Lukey Heights. So we'll go down a lap as Dean Favell's just jumped on the radio in the 880 machine about something there, perhaps. We'll see if we can figure it out for you folks. As well, looks like might have been some hip and shoulder back when being passed for position. See if we can pick it up here in the first of our RaceKraft simulations replays of the night here, Brant. This is back when he was fighting over P20. So Michael Stewart in behind here will ride on board with the 919 Hypersonic Racing entry. Favell there. Actually, oh, nope, Favell going...
So was it himself?
Let's go on board. So Christian Smart was just ahead of Whiting. Favell is there. Possibly a touch from Chad Vigor. Looks like one final take of it will go here, guys. The 016, Chad Vigor. That's now Favell directly in front of us here in his 880. Oh, early on the brakes here. And, yeah, not a lockup. Little tap there. Looks like Vigor not ready for the 880 of Favell to have jumped on the anchors that early for the Miller corner.
Yeah, that was the typical Constantina you tend to see when these large cars are running nose to tail like that down into Miller corner. So just caught the 880 off guard. A very minor tap. Yeah, very well done there, just to release the brakes and rejoin in a safe manner there. As we're on board with, well, we're on board with Jamie McKnight rather.
Christian Smart, actually.
Christian Smart, I stand corrected. Going through Hayshed up to Lukey Heights now. Everyone's seemingly starting to get into a rhythm now. Not too much chaos unfolding in those first couple of laps. Scott Gamble's got a half a second lead. Darren Lobb has 0.8 over Ken Ladder. So those top three are really starting to spread their wings now. So we'll be focusing more so down towards the mid-pack here as these battles start to condense up and we get these battle packs really start to form.
Yeah, just bring it up on screen. Didn't get to it pre-race, but two updates in race control in terms of license points. One of the penalties for the license point system, a pit lane start, was the threshold was crossed by Chris Blanchard, so the 669 WKMP Commodore had to start from the back of the field and in the lane. As a good point was made, Blake Delaney should have been way up the order, and instead he's currently sitting down in P36. Thank you for the spot, Dave Kirby. Commiserations again that you are unable to be here racing with the guys tonight. Let me see if I can find that for us here. And oh yes, whilst we were busy looking a little further down the pack, we've had issues for Delaney back on lap number 1. So going to go straight back to the next of our RaceKraft simulations replays here, Brent, because yeah, this was a big one that we completely missed. Being told, oh, spin for Blake. Oh, exit Siberia, and around he goes, unfortunately.
Yes, that would have been the car that I originally saw on lap 1 go around, and yeah, it's unfortunate for Blake there. A little bit too much of the go pedal, a little bit too much go-go juice, and the stereotypical supercars merry-go-round ride he joins. So manages to rejoin safely with no damage. That's the main thing. He's still got that fast repair up his sleeve, but good God, Dan, does Blake have his work cut out for him for the rest of the night to work his way through this long 39 car field?
He's going to probably need a safety car. Look at that train there sitting on the front stretch. And whilst he'll be able to catch up to them, that certainly will be a long haul. As you can see Chad Vigor sitting pit info that he's come down the lane. We can tell you, though, however, that was not for a pit stop. That was a drive-through penalty that was issued by race control to the 016. Now that would presumably actually yes, that would have to be, I think, for
that
the
P4 incident.
Contact with Chad Vigor, sorry, not Chad Vigor, with Dean Favell back at the at the Miller corner. So that is an interesting, I have to say, a bit of an interesting call in my perspective. It seemed pretty light tap, and Favell lost a couple of spots, but unless there's something else we're missing in that one there. I might I might bug Scott Rankin, who's a chief race steward for Split 1, see if he can just confirm if that one was for the incident there between Vigor and Flavel. But otherwise, we'll carry on our merry way and try and get back to this battle, which I was starting to see it was starting to brew here, Brant, and now definitely looking close here. Paul Warwick, Dan Hall over his rear gearbox. We run to turn 1, this time by the end of lap 6. And here comes Dan Hall to the inside as it's opened up. Well, not really opened up, I have to say. He certainly tried. Looks like Dan Hall going through.
I think he more forced it to open up there, Dan. That was a very slick move. Utilised the draft of these big supercars that they create to get down the inside into turn 1. Made the move by turn 2. We see now Dan Hall now has to fend off a 2, 3, 4 car battle pack that he's now in. Heading down into turn 3 and into turn 4 momentarily. Oh, big look there by the 050 and the blue Mustang behind him.
So don't forget 050, who's Paul Warwick from Fishy Motorsports, but in behind it's Chad Lewis, teammate of Dan Hall. As we actually take a moment here, use the first time to go on board with Zoom tonight with Dan. Now the camera is up and running for us here, Brant, and enjoy the sights and sounds of Phillip Island as we can see out the front of his car thanks to the camera view he's provided us with tonight, and also look out the back at Warwick here with the onboard feed.
This battle pack is quickly becoming, 5, 6, 7 cars deep as well. So a huge train starting to form here behind the 050. So both these boys have their work out, both defending, attacking, and defending. So this will be a battle pack to certainly keep our eye on for sure. They come through the final corner, down onto that long main straight again, under the Melbourne sign, across the start finish line to commence lap 8. 050 get close going down into turn 1 here. Not close enough to make a move, but he closes right up underneath on the inside there for turn 2 as the door looked like it may have potentially opened. Multiple lines you can take through that southern loop there, so it can be a very tricky corner to try and gauge where the other cars are at depending on what line you take. Starting to spread out a little bit this battle pack, but the 72 there really having to defend, 727 really having to defend off the 43 who we saw have that moment in here a handful of laps ago, Dan.
Yeah, and also just got confirmation from race control that the drive-through penalty for Chad Vigor was for the contact with the 880 of Dean Flavel. So that signed, sealed and delivered that one, sent the 016 back down the order, and yeah, we'll keep watching this battle. It's all a little loose there for Hall over the top at Lukey Heights. Warwick almost invited, and he actually gives a nudge to the back of the 462 there through MG. Unsettles the ERT machine there, but looks like he's going to be able to carry on for now and not lose any spots. What about Chad Lewis though in behind? Can the 727 do something with this one here as we head up towards turn 1 on this occasion?
Yeah, we saw the 43 trying to poke his nose up the inside there at the 727, so while Chad may want to make a move, he's also got to consider about what Jeff might be doing behind him as well. As we see Jeff King to the inside, show his nose, doesn't decide to make a move. These boys really fighting hard for these 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th position. Nose to tail all the way through. You can see there the multiple different exit lines that these guys are taking. Jeff right up under the rear wing of the 727 here, and the 727 likewise to the 050. Shows his nose, but doesn't make another move. So we see the OPR car behind the 43. He tries to go around the outside of the 727. Doesn't quite make it work.
But position gain for Paul Warwick. He's been able to get that one to work there at turn 4 in the middle of the corner. And yeah, this becomes not a 4-car battle pack. It's something more akin to a, let's see here. Yeah, that's 2 seconds there covering that entire training cars back to Chris Miller. That checks out. So 4th through to 10th. Now pretty much their own fight. And how about that? You look there at the number next to Paul Warwick's name, not the 050, that's his car number. But the gap to the race lead, 8.2 seconds. This squabbling here has allowed Gamble, Lobb and Ladder to just absolutely check out on the field and carry on their own merry way there. There's the 3 musketeers almost at the front of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. We're already starting to see the gap at the 050 started to open up on Dan Hall coming down the main straight. But if these other guys aren't careful, we're soon going to have P11 and P12, potentially P13 start ranging up on this battle as well. It's spread out just a little bit for the moment, but we saw that before. It only took a lap or two for them to all concertina back up and become nose to tail again. So while these guys were fighting, Dan, as you said, the 3 leaders, now covered by 0.85 of a second, have just skipped away. They've got a huge margin. They're just working together, working smart. Well, I say that, but the 099 and 269 are not necessarily playing it smart and working for the lead. They're still going hard at it. Scott Gamble's just watching behind currently. So Scott's got probably arguable, hands down, the best position. He's got no one in front of him. Nice clean air. But in saying that, the 269 could be trying to fuel save as well. Try and eke that margin out, as we discussed in the pre-race discussion before their dance. So could potentially be a bit of a strategy play here by Ken Latta, just to sit behind, try and conserve that fuel, build up, you know, an additional lap or two on the tank, and maybe try and have a slightly shorter pit stop than these other boys and try and jump Darren Lobb.
Certainly, but wouldn't be too surprised if someone like Darren Lobb is also doing a little bit of fuel saving of his own. As we'll go on board here with the 099. Although on this occasion, down into turn 1, that wasn't much of a lift or an ease into the corner here at this stage. Look at that in there on the side of our screen. Michael Quain, the 57 machine, going to be the next car down to the pit lane. We're almost at the point at which if you wanted to fill the car all the way up, based on our numbers, you can make it home. You probably can make it home here on the end of lap, or such. It's the end of lap 10. Probably pushing it, because that's having to do about 3.16 per lap in terms of fuel burn to be able to make it home from this point in the race. But hey, maybe gamble on a safety car and just top up to get your second compulsory stop done. Then those guys are all set as there's a wiggle from Lobb out of Siberia. He's certainly not hanging around in the 099, but still allowing Gamble to just eke out the margin slightly here at this stage in the race.
Yeah, as we see Michael Quain with nearly a 25-second pit stop, and Brenton O'Brien also on the pits with a 26-second pit stop. So those guys choosing to top those cars right up, and maybe, like you said, Dan, maybe try and feel safe, try and get it to the end so they just have to go up and down on the jacks for that second stop. And
this mega pack has splintered into, well, 2 slightly smaller packs. Warwick through to Chris Miller, 4th through 8th, I'd argue, is one of them. And then we've got this second grouping here. Troy Stone Street and the 044, probably leading up the next group here, back to Stephen Varga in the 868 and 13th position. As that there from Tim Nicol, all the racetrack and then some in use. As you can see that snake there as they work their way down towards turn 1 once again, and more drivers starting to peel into the pits. Now we're getting closer to that point where it's about viable. They will have to save a little bit of fuel to make it from here, but Michael Stewart, Stock McCune, and Scotty Van Loon all going to come in for their first stops of the race here, Brant. Yeah, we see those 3 leaders still covered by 0.8 of a second. Be interested to see what these guys do in the pit stop, whether or not they try and split it 50-50, or whether or not they fill the cars right up, as they're ticking well over towards 20 seconds now, and they're still up on the jacks. As we see 25, 26, and 25 second pit stops. No? Scotty Van Loon's still going. There we go, 29 seconds for Scotty. So 4.6 seconds between the 3 cars there across their 3 pit stops. So Scotty Van Loon opting for the big fill up and down for the second pit stop, it seems. But like you said, will have to be a bit of fuel saving to get to the end. Scott Gamble set the fastest lap of the race as well, so trying to hunt down another one of those extra points there, Dan, in that all-important championship battle. Indeed, and also rack up the points for leading laps, and probably the most laps at this rate as well. So maximum possible points if you rack all the bonuses up. Fastest pole position, fastest lap in the race, positions, laps led, most laps led, and no incidents. There are 5 possible options to get bonuses, and it would be a total of 6 bonus points. So yeah, maximum possible score for the night is 187. As we're just on board with Jason Fewens there for a bit, and looks like everyone that was pretty much behind him, or at least a good chunk of them, they've all headed for the pit lane here. So including Matt Vanderkraan, who I have selected. We are on board with the 180 machine right now. Where is the button? not that one. That one there.
Very busy pit lane as we see there with, what, 6 cars in pit lane currently?
Yeah, call it 5. Unfortunately, one of them there being the 57 of Michael Craig 696 of Craig Friend, sorry, who looks to be taking no further part in this race. So yeah, most drivers there once again opting for mid 20-second stops, it seems, which would be putting them in and around there that 50-something litres worth of fuel, probably closer to 60. At this stage, I'd have to go and run the numbers in the background to try and get them for you. I think so. Certainly, I love doing that kind of stuff when I'm just producing, but when I'm commentating as well, it's sort of a bit of an and an and a yeah, when do I get it done kind of a thing. Let's switch up some stuff here on the tower perhaps as well to show you that I have to go back into the mid-20s before we see drivers who have stopped. Never mind, there we go. Dan Hall, Chad Lewis, Jeff Thomas and Stephen Varga all going to jump in here on lap 13 for their first stop of the race. We aren't too far away from running out of fuel with the opening 50 litres, mind you.
A lot of these guys choosing to run these tanks pretty much empty towards the end of this first stint there, Dan. So some different strategies starting to play out, and that's what we anticipated early on unfolding. Obviously, the top 3, Scott, Darren and Ken, all choosing to run the super long option, as we see here, this 044 on the 520 of Stone Street and Whiting. So we see Whiting making a move down it. Millard, will he get it done? Or can Stone Street hold strong around the outside?
Looks like Whiting ahead.
Whiting's got it done. Good move there. Manages to hold it. Get that move done early on. Otherwise, the super cheap car could have potentially hung around the outside, then been on the inside for Siberia. So Scott Whiting continuing his march up the order at the moment. So we see this field really starting to splinter now with these pit stops taking effect as we see 4 more cars come into pit lane. Delaney, Griffiths, Vigor and Fisher all into the pit lane.
Now, critically there, if that number's right and there wasn't any issues for Damon Fisher's pit stop, watch out for him, because he's just taken practically a full tank of fuel aboard the 505 machine. He is almost a lap off the race leaders, although in saying that, there we go, end of lap 14. Race leaders are all in there now. If we were to get a safety car, though, Damon Fisher, maybe a splash of fuel or whatever he wants to make sure he's absolutely home safe, basically gets back a whole bunch of time on the drivers who go shorter in this stop here. So a bit of a roll the dice from Damon Fisher, but critically is on the lead lap as the leaders here see their times adding up in the lane. We'll watch here now for who comes away from the pit lane first.
Very busy pit lane there. As we see Scott Gamble. Oh no, Scott Gamble's come out second, so Scott's taken a slightly longer stop there compared to Darren Lobb in the 099. So a couple of different strategies there. Lobb playing the short game for track position, Gamble playing the long game, trying to minimise that second stop. So will be interesting to see whether or not Darren can kind of skip away from Scott here and kind of build up that margin to kind of soften that blow for the second stop. Or whether Scott will be able to reel him in and, you know, further extend his margin come the final stint of the race over Darren there. We're still waiting on Michael Whiting to come into the pit lane, and then that should cleanse the field, I believe, Dan.
Looking at my numbers, yep, that should just about do it as well. Unless Chris Blanchard... No, Chris Blanchard has just come to the pits as well. So he's gotten his first stop out of the way, and indeed, after 15 laps, that is practically the opening tank, 50 litres dry for the 520. We'll now see as to when where he comes out and when he comes back out. We'll bring up positions gained and lost. Well, actually, it's most positions gained, top 5 in the race so far once this cycle is over. It's been a race control call from Jason Fewens. You can see here, currently in the middle of a bit of a battle. Although, based on his Zoom feed, you wouldn't know necessarily that anything's gone so much. But we'll go back to a replay shortly here, Brant, because apparently Siberia, a bit of trouble for him on this lap. Actually, pardon me, it would have been the... No, it would be this lap, unless... Yes, because the leader's on 16, he called it in for 15, and he's on 15 right now.
Yep. So the field's now being cleansed with Michael Whiting coming into the lane and still falling down the order currently as we see him exiting pit lane there on the left and now back onto the track. So he comes out in P12. So couple laps difference between him and the leaders. Darren Lobb's got a 2.6 second margin over Scott Gamble. Scott Gamble has 2.8 over Ken Latta. And then there's that 8-second margin back to Jeff Thomas in P4.
Well, actually, it's not 2.8. The current numbers there are gaps between, or from the race leader, I should say. So that there is, yeah, so actually 2.2 from Lobb to Gamble, 2.7 from Lobb to Latta. So 5.43 and 2.69 are glued together, as you can see here on screen. Now, with the pit stops all complete for this opening season race, let's see who's moving and shaking their way around this field. And it looks like Robert Crisdale, pretty rough qualifying back in 35th place, but knocking on the door of the top 10 here at this stage, Brant. Top 10 is just there in front of him. Oh, he's got Michael Whiting looking to charge back. Part of that is definitely down to his pit stop. Time was a little short in comparison to other drivers around him at the stage. You can see there 18.4. If I bring up Michael Whiting, who's right behind him at this stage on the road, you can see that he owes about 10 seconds of fuel. It's not necessarily that much to everyone around him on circuit, but that might want to watch is, there we go, Lewis and Warwick in the foreground going at it here into turn 1.
Oh, there was a big battle coming down into turn 1, as well as they're nearly 3 wide in the background there behind Chad and Paul Warwick at the moment. So this is a good 3-car battle pack after the pit stops and all these different strategies. The field really starting to close back up as we see 727 having to run down the middle of the circuit there from Paul Warwick as Paul sticks his nose around the outside if he can hold it there. No, he can't.
I was just going to swing this camera around to see if we could find him, but yeah, lo and behold, he's back all the way there now. And now got to worry about one of his own teammates, I believe. Yes, it's Paul Warwick and Christian Smart who are there together at this stage.
See in the background there, 6-car battle pack. Headed by the, what number is that? The 666 car. So, big battle pack here.
The 13th. Well, yeah, 13th through 18th at this stage is who we're dealing with here.
Keywords at this stage. It could definitely explode by another, potentially 6 cars as we see out the back of the Fishy Mustang here. He's opened up a slight margin to Crane behind him in 57 cars. So Miller starting to maybe stretch his legs in this Fishy Mustang, starting to pull away from this battle pack, get that clean air in front and behind us. We see a move being made by Stewart up the inside of turn 1. Showed his nose, didn't quite get it done.
Almost, yeah, but not quite indeed. Speaking of, yeah, some good battles here so far tonight. In fact, not that one, apologies. That's the one down at the splitter. I was thinking maybe we grab this one here. We'll go to a replay in a couple of minutes when maybe we get a moment for things to calm down here. But on board with Michael Stewart now, Hypersonic Racing 919, one of our drivers on Zoom with us here tonight. Making some good progress, up 4 spots in this opening stint of the race so far as well, Brant. Need to also consider as well tonight at some point that we have ourselves the Choppy Buns Burgers Driver of the Day award to present. And whilst certainly this is mainly for us to pick out as this race goes on, certainly if you're watching along in the YouTube chat, I've got the ability to see the YouTube chat whilst we're talking tonight. So if you've got any thoughts on that one there, feel free to give us a bit of a chime in and to also point out. And obviously I understand we've got people watching you here, you've got teams to support and the like, but 100%, if you see something in terms of driver making up some great spots, or in the case of say what we did for Scott Gamble last week, started at the front, had a complete disconnection, not of his own making, it seems, dropping out of the server, but then able to get back into it, and through, yes, virtual safety cars certainly helped him, get back to the front of the field and take the checkered flag first, although due to points penalties won't be officially considered the winner of the round. We ended up giving him the award there on the night. As speaking of more fighting here, Jeff Thomas is going to let Dan Hall buy into the Miller corner for P4 on lap 19 here.
Smart move. Jeff didn't necessarily put up too much of a fight there, but now he needs to be cautious of that 044 Super Cheap Auto machine just sitting in there behind him, that he doesn't leave himself too vulnerable to the 044 of Tony Stone Street. So good battle pack here. Nice, clean, hard racing, which is what we're expecting from the V8 Vets League. But we can see there that Dan has started to open up a 4/10 of a second margin over Jeff. So Dan looks like he might have some legs to stretch in that 462 car. So we go to a replay here. This will be the Scott McCune incident, I believe.
Yeah, I just heard him call on the radio. Jason Fewens in behind on the way to the middle of the corner. Uh-oh, that's a bit deep from Fewens, I think, and it's caused McCune to have to get out of it. Looks like it's going to be redressed straight away as they then get going back up to speed there. So hopefully not too much of a drama. There was also something a couple of laps ago for Jason Fewens, but I have been informed in the meantime no further action to be taken on the incident for that, whatever incident that happened to be exactly. It was back in Siberia, I know that much. There's a Stewart and Quain going at it again, so the 919 finds a run on the 57. Has to go the long way around here at the Southern Loop though, Brant. Can he pull it off? It looks like he might have just done it.
Nearly side-to-side contact there with the 57 and the 919. 919 is going to have the inside for Miller corner here. And it looks like...
Oh, he's in deep.
Doored him. And the 57 will hold... The 919 rather will hold on to it. The 57 will lose one position there as he defends from... where are we? Who was that? I'm trying to find my bearings here. I apologise.
We're looking at P14 on back, and it's a battle group of... Oh, yeah, 14 on back. I'm looking at least 8 or so cars. He's currently P16. Yeah, it goes back to at least... Yeah, it goes back to 21st place at this stage, this battle. Look at them here.
Big move down the inside there into MG by the 027. It looks like he gets that done of McKnight. So solid move there. McKnight up 4 positions tonight.
Yeah, another one picked up here at this stage, and indeed did get the move done. Yeah, this is the big battle, as it were. We've got the fight for 4th between Dan Hall, Jeff Thomas, Troy Stone Street. That's certainly alive and kicking. Then you've got 7th to 11th. Damien Cairns now leading this particular pack on screen. I'll bring it up here for you now. This bunch of cars here, and then there's that big snake from 14th back to 21st. And then there's even more
wiggle there for the 88 car coming off turn 2 there. Sorry, Dan, didn't seem to cost him too much time. He has another wiggle coming off turn 4. 727 looking opportunistically around the outside. Decides to park it back in behind him. So the 88 having a couple wiggles there that's cost him a significant amount of time to the cars behind him in that battle for 7th.
Yeah, it has. Look here at Chad Lewis on board with him now. We run up towards Nookie Heights once again. In fact, we even go on board Chad, one of our drivers here on the side. You can actually see here, ERT driver. That's actually the first shot I've seen on the Zoom feed. Oh, he's got the door open. Has he got some competition from behind? Oh, yeah, for a moment, Paul Warwick wanted this. Oh, there's been big drama in the pack further on back. We have to cut away from the Zoom feed and try and pick up what's happening to Stewie Hall on the radio. And he's very slow. There you go. He's already dropped back into the next pack behind.
Looks like some witness marks down the left-hand side of the 49 car there as he's getting back up to speed now by the looks of it. So we'll go to a replay here.
Well, we'll have to go back a little further, I think, and find a different camera angle for you guys. That there is just into the hay shed here. So McKnight around the outside of Stewie Hall. That puts McKnight in the dirt, and then up the hill we come into Lukey itself. Oh, and then McKnight's a little wide. It's going to escort Stewie Hall into the grass. And unfortunately, tumbling down the order as he then pulls it up to make sure he doesn't run too hot. And yep, indeed, there's that dent on the left rear wheel. Oh, that moment there. So we've got 016. So that was it 014 of Rick Vigor with Blake Delaney? Looks like it was the 014, apologies, in that battle there. So that got very heated all of a sudden there. We'll wait to see how that one gets called. It was a bit of back and forth there.
Yes, it was seemed like it was almost a bit of an eye for an eye moment there for the 49 and Jamie McKnight. So we move on Thankfully, the 49 still has a straight car, no real damage, so he'll be able to truck on. That's the most important thing for his race, that he can continue on through the rest of the race. He's in down the middle of this big battle pack though, so won't be doing his car or his tyres or his fuel economy for that matter any favours whatsoever. As we see them come through the final corner, just past pit entry into the final corner now. Down for this fast run down into turn 1. So we see the battle with the 462 and 443 and 044 continuing on. This has been a race-long battle here, Dan, and it doesn't show any signs of letting up anytime soon. The 43 just showing his nose, not trying to make any moves necessarily, but just trying to kind of scare Dan into a lockup maybe, force an error. That will allow him an easier move, but Dan Hall standing strong here at the moment. As we see a points penalty coming through for Fewens with contact with the 77 of McCune from race control.
Yeah, that one back on the lap 19. Incident down at the Miller hairpin there has been decided. And so it was 10 points was what I heard over the radio there. So basically imagine Jason Fewens as a race score what it would normally be, and locked 10 points off that one there in terms of his official results for the round, which will update you all on next week prior to the race broadcast there as well, of course. As I wanted to go on board with Jeff Thomas next to our drivers who's got a Zoom feed for us tonight, maybe even just settle in if we can for a lap and see how Jeff's hanging it here around the island. But I doubt that's going to be much of a thing, as similar points penalty has been issued for Michael Stewart, or that would have been contact with Michael Quang, it was said lap 20, so there we go. I'll update that one there as well as John Latham.
Contact between the 43 and 462 there. 462 is escorted wide after a bump in the rear. I was just going to say that Dan was a little bit slow coming off turn 2. Allowed Jeff to range right up onto the rear, and as we saw just there, Dan, contact between the 43 and the 462. So that'll be one that race control will have a look at, and they've set a precedence there with the earlier on incident where a drive-through was issued. So this could potentially really harm Jeff's race here.
Yeah, it is going off here now. And, well, I was hoping at a moment to ride with Jeff Thomas. We will, but it'll be on a RaceKraft Simulations replay. And it might not be so flattering, unfortunately, this time for the 43. As we'll see it from back here and it jump on the roof. And unfortunately here, let's watch this, see how it went down. Yeah, Dan breaking that little bit earlier because he's just a little off the line, it seems, to try and also park them up a little bit too. And unfortunately that has not worked one bit whatsoever for him in the end, although we'll see how that one plays out for race control. He's still in P6, so he's only lost 2 spots, but he has lost a good chunk of time there. So we'll see how that gets determined. As Damien Cairns, I believe, yep, first driver coming in for his second stop of the race, because yeah, we are on lap 25. We're well inside the window to make it home. So going early is the 88.
Yeah, that's a brave decision to come in early. Maybe just trying to get some clean air, try and feel safe a little bit. Between the cars around him, a 28.4 second pit stop from Damien Cairns there on the 88, so he'll be trundling his way out of pit lane and onto the racetrack now by the looks of it. So on board with the 999 here, going through Hayshed, coming up towards MG and Lukey Heights.
Now Christian Smart, if I'm not mistaken, our second biggest mover of the night. Unfortunately for him, he's got Robert Christo, who's made up the most places tonight. Oh, no, apologies, Ricky Hyde. He's been running rather quiet tonight. Where is Ricky in the 802 machine? He's back, unfortunately, way back in 22nd still. So he's up 16 spots, putting him at 38th. He's up to 22nd, so making good moves as Hyde, but I have to say, tonight, looking like it's going to be, at this rate, probably between Crisdale and Smart for Chubby Bunsberger's Driver of the Day award, perhaps, unless things change again. We are barely crossing, well, not too far past the halfway marker, Brent. I probably really shouldn't be counting too many chickens before they hatch in all of this.
No, absolutely not. We've seen that this race has had periods of good battles, followed by some, a few short periods of insanity, and then back to these battle packs. So don't count your chickens before they hatch at all, Dan. That would be an unwise decision, as we see this 5 or 6 car battle pack on screen currently riding on with the 999 of Chris Smart. Coming into Siberia. Chris has Michael Whiting in the 520 ahead of him. Now remember, Michael Whiting was the last car to pit, and I believe he's made up 3 positions from where he came out. So Whiting slowly starting to move forward as Brendan O'Brien's just completed his 2nd pit stop on lap 26 there.
Yeah, Brenton not one who's afraid of going for the alternate strategy play. Puts him out in plenty of clean air by the looks of things. In fact, if I even grab, which I just quickly show, so the timing needs to update now that he's come out of the pits, because 1 minute 16 is not the gap back to John Latham listed. Oh, no, pardon me. Looks like it might have been the case. There's been exchange. Dan Hall's coming in for his 2nd stop of the race. So that's what has happened there. Now I was going to grab, yes, I need to grab the 88 of Damien Cairns, the next car up the road from O'Brien here. Yeah, so it's got 7 seconds of air in front, and looks like, unfortunately for John Latham, who was behind, that's no longer the case. In fact, yeah, he's disconnected from the server.
We've also got the 180, the 57 and 067 all in the pit lane at the moment, as we see Dan Hall finish its pit stop with the 26.1 second stop and coming back out onto pit lane as we speak. On board, on screen there currently. He has one of the Super Jeep Auto cars ranging down on him at a rapid rate of knots. That would be Chris Blanchard coming into the southern loop there in the Super Jeep Auto ZB. Had to think about that for a second.
Yeah, so Blanchard, interesting out there, it says did he actually do a qualifying time tonight? Interesting. He did. Now, I'm going to hope he didn't take the grid when he did that pit lane start, because he was instructed to do one, and has to do one at some point promptly this season. As Crisdale, currently our biggest mover in the field, comes to the lane to get his 2nd stop of the race done. So drivers coming in just a little shy of the perfect thirds at this stage, Brant, but probably looking to get some track position. I reckon they've found a gap, and you'd hope to come back out in and then race on with a fresh set of tyres. At least that would theoretically be the play, at least.
It'll be very interesting to see whether 46. Let me re-say that again. It'll be interesting to see where Jeff and the ERT car who's already pit, whose name eludes me, I apologise, to see whether or not the overcut or the undercut will actually favour Keir in this particular circumstance, given the fact that Jeff, has Troy Stone Street just sitting there behind him with half a second. So Jeff's still having to battle quite hard compared to the 462, who has, that potential, that relatively clean air in front of him, not having to force the issue with those tyres. So be interested to see when the 43 pits and once his pit stop is done, where that will currently shake out.
Yeah, that will be the all-important question for a little bit later in the piece. Keep on watching though. This fight is just our main battle for the time being here. Chad Lewis trying to weather the storm of a triple threat from Fishy Motorsports drivers in the forms of Paul Warwick, Michael Whiting and Christian Smart, but so far looking plenty composed here at this stage, I'd have to say, as that's the look from just over Chad's right shoulder. We'll keep looking at the back of his car for now as Warwick gets awfully close there under brakes, and in fact he's going to try and cross over here on exit. I think he wanted to there, Brant, but Chad parks it up nicely on the apex and drives out for Siberia.
Yeah, good defense there by the 727 of Chad Lewis at the moment. Paul really trying to find a way. He's been stuck behind Chad for a significant amount of time now, and he really wants to get by. Obviously, he's got these other two fishy partners behind him as well, so you can dare imagine if one fishy car goes through, at least another's going to try and follow and boot Chad Lewis down another potential 2 spots here. But Chad just having a little bit of a gap at the moment. See, Chad doesn't seem to be as confident coming off turn 2 into turn 3 and turn 4 there. That's where the 50 really seems to gain, as we see Chad ultimately peel into pit lane and take his second pit stop with 15 to go.
Oh, he's a little quick there. I think he might have got it down. I think the overlay actually didn't quite keep up with Chad there as he hit the lane. And there you go. Is not the only one in. Jeff Thomas, Troy Stone Street, and Christian Smart will come in as well. So more of our cars here from inside the top 10 getting their second stop complete. We haven't checked in with the race leaders for a while, so how about we do that? Because you know how we said that, in particular with the pit stops, that Darren Lobb needed to make about 3 seconds? Well, he had that on the exit of the pits, funnily enough. He doesn't have that anymore. Scott Gamble is on a bit of a charge, it seems, to try and hunt back down Darren. But critically, when speaking about championships and such, Darren has led since the pit stops on lap 14. Actually, pardon me, winding with that extra lap to 15. Does mean, though, at the end of this lap 30 here, I believe he'll inherit the most laps led of the race so far tonight, and he will immediately peel to the pit lane, and lo and behold, Scott Gamble's going to go with, even though he could probably go an extra lap on fuel. And oh, that's a bit hot. Did he get it pulled up?
Scott not wasting Darren not wasting any time getting into the pit lane there. As you said, we could probably expect to see Scott jump Darren quite easily here and quite significantly. The challenge for Darren will then be if he can pull those 3 seconds back to Scott and do what Scott did to him in this third and final stint, as Ken Latta pulls into his pit bay as well.
Paul Warwick's turn to inherit the race lead for a lap at least.
50 continues on his merry way. I'll have a quick look at my time in here to see where the 43 ultimately did pop out, if he popped out in front of the 462. As we see, wow, Darren Lobb sticking right behind Scott Gamble there. Gamble not having the lead that I anticipated he would have at all after that pit stop. 0.3 of a second, so this battle could potentially go right down to the wire here.
Yeah, that numbers almost don't really add up. The fact that total lane time of about 1.5 seconds faster for Scott Gamble, pit stop time over 2 seconds better, as immediately Lobb shows the nose into Miller. So, actually, that does say to me there, Scott Gamble's been a little conservative either on pit entry, or presumably it was pit entry because Darren Lobb threw it in really deep. Maybe just, and he didn't quite get a penalty, he must have been awfully close, but maybe just threw it in just deep enough that it got him maybe another half second to close up that margin. And therefore, he's now on the gearbox at the 543. And we've got ourselves a race here for the final 15 odd laps or so once they re-inherit the lead from Paul Warwick, who now, just as we say it, comes down to the lane.
Yeah, definitely caught off guard here. Could have also been the fact that maybe Darren, the reason why those 3 seconds are closed up was because Darren managed to, save potentially a lap or two of fuel as well throughout that stint, which definitely would have aided him in, in bringing that time back as well. So I'll be very interested to hear post-race just what Darren did to bring that time back. As we see Paul Warwick, Darren Goosey, Griffiths and Bigger all into the pit lane currently.
Indeed, we'll check back in on positions gained and lost for everyone once this second cycle of stops evens out. And saying that, there's not too many people left to complete their second stop near the top of the order. In fact, inside the top 10, it's only Blake Delaney and Scotty Van Loon who are out of position relative to the cars around them. And when it comes to cars further down the order, in fact, the last of them are in the pits right now. So in fact, it will just be the 008 and the 410 of Delaney and Van Loon who owe us their second pit stop. In fact, let's just quickly throw that up on the board for you folks. there you can see just about everyone else in the 20s, or in this case lap 30 or so. The 008 and 410 stick out a little bit there with pit stops back on laps 13 and 11 respectively.
Very early pit stops for those guys. Half a second covering the top two cars, but they have a nice margin back to Ken Latta, who in turn has a nice margin back to Blake Delaney. Blake Delaney, might we add, up to P4.
Indeed, so yeah, he owes us one more stop tonight, which does partly answer that question as to how he's going. Trying to recover after unfortunately spinning himself around at Siberia. Ergo Van Loon in the background has hit the lane. So we'll watch for him where he comes out in that information box in your right side of your screen. But we'll track here, yeah, the 008 Delaney now. Let's say back where he should be on pace, but unfortunately way off on strategy still, because it looks like we are going steady here. Coming up to 10 laps ago. Actually currently got 13. There's 13 to go at the line, yes. So there is that. So we're looking to see how we do. Nice little shot here, able to watch him from the eye here as they work their way around. Might remember to use that one there once we get if we get a battle and we'll dive up into pardon me, what's it there, as Warwick has passed by Stone Street in the meantime. Oh, how's that there for a nice little battle? It has resumed once again amongst these drivers.
727 having to defend there immediately of the 666 car of the pink fishy Mustang, as we see the two Logitech cars teaming up on this poor fishy car. So one to definitely look for. This has been a battle that's been raging all races. The 462 who is not Dan Hall, sorry, has come out way behind Jeff Thomas there. Monumentally behind Jeff Thomas. So Jeff has managed to jump in quite significantly there. The 666 hanging around the outside. No, he's actually in fact opened the door to the 462, who has pulled out of that move and has since fallen behind the 666. Chris Miller.
All right, there's part of your answer as to why Jeff Thomas is ahead. As it's getting very feisty there down the front stretch of turn 1. Miller to the inside of Lewis. Dan Hall defending from Christian Smart takes the inside on the defense. And that looks to have worked, but exchange there. And the 666 gets through here. That is now for 9th place in this race here. As this is now becoming more of a fight for P9 rather than the fight for P7, as Warwick and Stone Street happily checking out ahead.
Yes, this battle pack. Chris Smart there. Good move there down into turn 1. Holding off the 727 to get that move done. The 727 now comes under attack from his teammate of Dan Hall in the 462 ERTZB, who is in turn also under attack by the 999 Chris Smart, Fishy Mustang. So, as usual, it's Fishy and ERT going at it as it has been for the whole race. As you can see on the right-hand side there of your screen, Jeff Thomas with nearly a 3-second faster pit stop than Dan Hall. So that explains part of the reason why he is so far ahead. And Jeff is probably quite happy about that, looking at his relative box. As we see a points penalty for the 43, speaking of the devil, on the lap 24 contact with the 462. So no drive-through, post-race points penalty being allocated and elected for by race control there, Dan.
Yep, and I do believe now, with the exception of Delaney, Delaney is now the odd one out. The field is cleansed apart from him. He did also put in a decent amount of fuel here, 30 seconds, so we're looking at 65, 60, maybe beyond 70 litres of fuel here. So he probably has lap 13, he last stopped, so he could probably get this all the way through to basically the long stop strategy that we roughly sort of planned out. In fact, actually, yeah, 1 second. Let me just actually I'll throw it on my preview, because I actually want to go and have a look at the numbers. So I can do, it's a great thing, I can do this when broadcasting, I can actually check it out. You know, he's not far off the long stop plan estimate. I'd probably say he's got maybe only another lap or two of fuel at best. But he's basically running the long stop, the long middle stint plant that we had a bit of a throw out there as a bit of an estimate to a T here. at this stage.
Yeah, Blake playing definitely the left-hand field strategy game as we see as the 802 runs wide.
Oh, Ricky
as
Hyde.
We were following the 401 there. Ironic that the car that went off was double the car that was ahead of him, but you won't move on from that. Unfortunate there for Ricky Hyde to run off into the dirt at Siberia there. Ultimately comes back on for straight car, which is exactly what we want to see. Now, was there contact?
Yeah, just a little bit. Unfortunately.
Big boop there. Oh,
and then we've got a messy situation here. Ricky Hyde trying to redress the spot. Fewens stuck. Oh, trouble for Paul Warwick whilst we're on the replays here. So we'll actually stick to replays for a bit. And then unfortunately for Ricky Hyde, just completely solo there for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, puts that right hand side of the car on the grass there and just runs wide.
And I want to go back real quick and have a look at something here. Scotty Van Loon's back on lap 33. That's Stewie Hall to his inside. And Lukey Heights, not friend of the 410 there on that second one. And then Paul Warwick going to stick with this lovely drone shot here tonight. This is now lap 36. Miller corner once again. Up the odds. That's Chad Lewis who's inside. That's a little deep from the 727 now. Oh, and then he goes around. Oh no, Paul.
Very lucky not to clip the second ERT there as he pirouetted. Unfortunate there for the 050 to end that battle like that.
As Warwick is gone. Oh, no, that's a toe from Paul Warwick. Yeah, that number. The fact that the pit lane and pit stop time matched up perfectly. Unfortunately, this sets the end of Paul Warwick in terms of his race tonight, as Blake Delaney will be our last car to take their second compulsory stop of the race, cleanse the field, as it were, and we can get ready to start talking about who's been movers and shakers now that the cycle has worked its way through, and we're down to just 9 laps to go, sorry. Got to remember, when you're starting these numbers, you actually have to technically add one to what you think it is in the grand scheme of things. But nevertheless, here we go with the battling. It's on. Definitely a two-way scrap for now. They've absolutely dropped Ken Ladd. I have to say, Ken, he's got the ultimate pace, but apparently tonight, not quite there. So I'll actually bring up our last couple of laps for these guys. You can see here, it's nearly 4/10, then another quarter of a second. He just got back some time on lap 36. We'll see here when it updates for lap 37 how it's looking.
Got Gamble and Darren Lobb still holding as they came out of pit lane. Lap 37 was just 3/4 of a tenth gain, so nothing in it for Ken. He's not really gaining. Previous 2 or 3 laps he actually lost a fair bit of time, as you said there, Dan, so I think Ken will just try and get it home at P3. Probably a little bit too far gone, that gap to try and make up, especially when those two boys are battling as hard as they are. We see Robert Brisdale holding strong with 23 positions gained. So we thought he may have fallen down a little bit with that 10-second different pits, 10 seconds, with that significantly shorter pit stop. That hasn't really happened. So Rob Brisdale in the 808, absolutely phenomenal drive, up 23 spots. Chris Smart up 15, Brenton O'Brien up 13, Chris Miller up 10, Jamie McKnight up 9. So very, very busy night for Rob there. A lot of cars past there, Dan.
Sure has. A bit busy for us as well as figuring out as to whether or who deserves Chubby Buns Burgers Driver of the Day nomination as well. As a result, unfortunately going to lose a spot there. McKnight, ambitious and bold on the brakes, and it's worked out quite nicely with the 027 machine. Gets past into the Miller corner there. But yeah, the fact we've got Chris Miller up 10 into P7. You've got Christian Smart up 15 spots to get the last place in the top 10. Or do you go for someone like Troy Stone Street just outside the top 5? Although he's got Miller to contend with here. Trying to hang on to a P6 position here. As now this is for a battle once again. Currently the 3 of them working this fight over.
It's a very tight little battle pack here. The 462 there in the background, just lagging behind ever so slightly, about 0.8 of a second. So sitting there, but in saying that, Dan will be right there if these three do happen to trip over themselves. They are line astern coming through the exit of turn 2, as you see the 044 machine trying to get a bit of a better run. Good traction there by the 666 Mustang though, as they go down through turn 3, heading into Miller corner, turn 4.
And a position made for Miller, under brakes into turn 1. Here at the start of lap 39, so it's now plus 11 for Miller. There's a little wiggle. Was that a wiggle actually? Maybe that just might have been the position we were at there. Not quite giving that one away. So, yeah, so we've got our work cut out for us tonight. As to figuring out who we give the nomination to, but we'll get to that, I think, come the end of the race. We'll maybe have to just make that discussion, maybe sort that one out over the Discord server messages, and then we can let everyone know, obviously via the broadcast, funnily enough, as we're coming up to just 6 laps to go here from the island for this third round of the RaceKraft V8 Veterans Championship for season 19. There's still a two-way horse fight between Scott Gamble and Darren Lobb. 5 seconds back from Lobb is Ken Lanner at this stage. And then it's a pretty healthy 15 seconds back to Michael Whiting, who's now happily running in P4. Jeff Thomas holding down the top 5, trying to catch up, but he's another 3.5 seconds back. And then it's this messy, well, not messy, but this battle pack, which is now very much Stone Street, under all kinds of assault from Chad Lewis.
Yes, these two ERT cars starting to pester the Fishy, the 044 Fishy, WK and SimSpeed rather, Troy Stone Street car. So you see them range right up under braking here through turn 4, middle corner, down into turn 5, Siberia. Bit of a wiggle there from the 727, very, very comfortable under brakes there in that ERT Logitech G ZB.
See them here lifting through the hay shed, not quite able to keep it completely flat as they try and maintain the speed. And then, yeah, over the top. Lukey Hines down to MG. I have to say at this stage, Lewis looks he's getting that car pointed a little better into the corners, although maybe lost a little bit of speed there on the exit of MG on that occasion. So Stone Street spot might be secure for another lap, as we're crossing the 5 laps to go margin here now. As Chris Miller also looking to try and get away from this lot, but the way they're going, I don't think he'll get much of a chance to get away if Stone Street can keep his eyes forward. We'll have to see though if Chad Lewis was going to even allow that one at this stage.
Interestingly, we were discussing Blake Delaney before. He's come out, was in P21. He's made up a couple of positions now. He's now in P19. So Blake's definitely made up some of that ground that he lost in on the lap 1 incident there. He's got 4.2 seconds to the car in front, so probably not enough time to make up any extra positions, but while he'll be angry, frustrated with himself for that self spin, to still come home in the top 50% of the field nearly after that lap 1 spin when everyone is so close together. It was a Jesus, we see the cars behind going at it, hammer and tongs there at the moment, and we believe we've actually lost one off the track. Yes, we have.
Matt van der Kraan, unfortunately the 180 machine is in the weeds there. We've just also heard from race control. We've got another points penalty coming. I'm just going to find which one that was. Apparently, just going to check, confirm. It is for Chad Lewis, I can say that much. The 727 is getting a points penalty there. That's who it is. I'm just going to confirm what the incident was on lap 36 for you all before I put that up on the screen.
Yes, I'm not entirely too sure what that was for. We didn't manage to catch it at least. So 727 with points penalty as they're coming down into turn 4. Stone Street really having his hands full here with these two ERT cars behind him. The two ERT cars having their hands full with each other, it seems, as we see Dan trying to make a move on Chad there. I wasn't able to get it done going through turn 5, Siberia. They come back onto this back section of track down through sector 2. 462 through, and Chad did not make that difficult at all. I think that was just a little bit of inter-team communication there. No point risking it when you got two team cars battling. So smart move there by Chad just to concede the position. That still moves him up 3 spots for the evening from P12 into the top 10, and that puts Dan Hall rather, sorry, equal to where he started the race originally.
As we're down to 3 laps to go here at the island, and yeah, Race Control a little busy here with another points penalty coming in. That one for actually, who made contact with Paul Warwick? That's what I've got to figure out. Maybe that's the one on lap 36. Now, actually, I might quickly go to a replay to confirm that rather than speculation. And saying though, it happened basically back when it was around Jeff Thomas. So I'm going to go to probably our last RaceKraft Simulations replay of the night. So this is it. So turn 1 looks to the inside of Jeff Thomas. And is there a rub here on the exit that then... No, they get through and then oh! That's unfortunate there because Jeff has actually done a nice job to hold the inside curb there, Brant. Looks like he may have ran a little wide on the exit from that brief cat glimpse we get. Now, is there something here? Because here comes Chad Lewis. Miller corner once again, potentially going to be host to a bit of a kerfuffle, perhaps. Oh, yes, he runs it a bit hot. Yeah, actually, that's right. Yeah, that's it there. So that's what it was for. And then, yeah, that's right. And then Warwick, unfortunately, Randy goes, we did catch this one on the replay. Apparently, it needed to jog my memory on that one, unfortunately.
Very lucky for him for Chad not to actually hit the, oh, not Chad, sorry, for the 050 car to not actually hit the wall there at turn 4 when he skated across the track there. So as we flick back to the race lead, and they are still glued together as they have been for the majority of this race, and they've dropped Ken ladder even more now. That gap is now out to 6.2 seconds, 6.1 seconds. So these two pretty even, as you can see there. Scott Gamble on lap 41 with the 10th over Darren. Darren pulled it in by 33 hundredths, only to lose 42 hundredths the next lap. So they're very, very even, these two. But Darren running out of time as they'll come across the start finish line to start the final lap momentarily. Lap 45 here at Phillip Island.
And indeed, nearly 200 kilometres of racing so far, and it all comes down to this one here. Has Darren Lobb got something left on this final 4.45 kilometre circuit of the island? Scott Gamble, we said, has been looking in control and pretty comfortable so far tonight. Can Darren Lobb maybe, just maybe, find something a little different to change that one up for us here? Let's ride on board with the 099 for most of this last lap here, as they're already out of turn 2, coming up to Miller Corner for the final time here. Too far back, surely, to make a move at 3/10, but certainly threatens for half a moment in the mirrors to try and maybe get something. And then can he get it pulled back across to get the exit right? It's a bit of a wind up there, Brant. Coming to Siberia already half a lap down, and the gap is staying pretty stable.
Yeah, Scott just doing everything he needs to at the moment. Nothing more to stay ahead. Darren just not close enough seemingly to be able to make a move. He's quickly running out of spots. The next prime opportunity overtaking spot is coming down into MG here off Lukey Heights, but again, he's half a second off. Not going to be close enough. Not really going to threaten Scott at all. Scott should have it pretty easy through these last 2 corners, providing he keeps it on the black stuff within the 2 white lines here. 1 corner to go for Scott Gamble. Nice and comfortably through the final corner onto the front straight to bring it home, to meet the checkered flag for another victory in the V8 Vets League. So good battle between these two. The 543 of Scott Gamble heading home the 099 of Darren Lobb from Menon Sim Racing Products. Ken Ladder in P3 and the 269. These three relatively inseparable until that second pit stop there where they opened up that gap. 666 Fishy Car will come home in P4.
No, pardon me, actually looking a little bit further back to P6, yeah.
P6.
Oh, is that Dan Hall out of fuel?
Yes, must be, because the 727 had let him through with about 3 or 4 laps to go. So Dan Hall running it very, very close to the line there in terms of fuel. Must have just coughed as he crossed it.
Look here for our final couple of drivers to make it across the line, and our final couple of battles for the race. Back here at P23, as unfortunately that's completely confused things for us there. Drivers fanning out towards the end of this one here. Looks like our last battle pack here was for 28th, but Jason Fewens will be able to hold on there. And Ricky Hyde, unfortunately, late moment there for him has unfortunately done him in. And that will be basically the end of it here. Last couple of cars coming to the line, ramp, and then we'll be able to take our race results here for round 3 of the RaceKraft Veterans V8 Vets Championship. Season number 19. Indeed, there we are. Results are official. We can now turn our attention to them here and bring them up on the screen.
Scott Gamble coming home in the 5:43.95 Sim Sports by just under 0.4 of a second to Darren Lobb. Ken Ladder, 7.7 seconds behind for Fishy Motorsports. Michael Whiting in the 5:20 for another Fishy Motorsports car. Huge gap there, Dan. 18 seconds between P3 and P4. Jeff Thomas in P5, Chris Miller in P6, closely followed by Troy Stonestreet in P7. Chad Lewis in P8 in the 727. Dan Hall, who was let by just a few laps prior, comes home with less than 1/10, just over 1/10 of a second rather, between the two. And Chris Smart rounding out the top 10.
P11 tonight going to Jay McKnight there in the 027, and making up a healthy number of spots, 11 gained for him here tonight. Stephen Varga unfortunately slipping back to P12 ahead of Tim Nicol there in the pair of the Quantum Peckies Racing machines. Rob Crisdale, our biggest mover of the night, going to come home in 14th place, so make that 21 spots for him gained overall. Matt Scholes in behind makes up 5 spots for P15. Michael Stewart comes up a couple of spots to 16th, and the same said for Dean Clavel in 17th. Blake Delaney, unfortunately, no safety cars to help him recover his night. Will have to settle for an 18th place finish. Damien Cairns and Michael Quain rounding out our top 20.
As we move on to the second half of the field, Brennan O'Brien for ERT coming home in P21. Matt Vanderkran in P22 for Angry Birds Racing. The 29 finishing in P23 for Mark Poynton. Rick Vigor in the second of the Angry Birds Racing, third Angry Birds Racing rather, coming home in P24. Stewie Hall coming home in P25 for Nova Sim Sports. Scott McCune for Hypersonic Racing in the 77 in P26. Scotty Van Loon coming home in P27 in the 410 machine. P28 sees Jason Fewens. P29 sees Darren Goosey. And rounding out our 30 is Robbie Griffiths for Fishy Motorsports.
Unfortunately, looking now back at the drivers who have had a bit of a tough time of it tonight. 31st goes to Ricky Hyde there in the 802 machine for the 801 Sim Racing team. Chad Vigor in behind the 016 for Angry Birds Racing. Only half a second between the two of them across the line, not even that. Damon Fisher, unfortunately, down the back tonight for him will be 33rd across the line ahead of Chris Blanchard and Paul Burns. WK and Sim Sports pairing going to be our last 2 cars on the lead lap tonight. Paul Warwick unfortunately retiring 10 laps shy of the finish, with Craig Friend retiring 18 laps shy. Therefore, both of those drivers, actually I think of those drivers, only Warwick would have been eligible, although I think he escaped without permission. Don't quote me necessarily on that. He may... It was just a moment I saw in the glimpse, so that might not have been the case. If that is it, everyone from 37th on back, unfortunately, not eligible for points. Those, of course, being Craig Friend, John Latham, and David Kirby not taking the start here tonight. Craig Rose in another split of the V8 Vets, and that's going to do it for our race results, and it's going to mean for the third race of the season, Brant, we'll get a chance to chat to Scott Gamble as our man fastest across the line here tonight. So without further ado, let's bring him into the comms box. Oh, pardon me, let's not grab you, let's grab Scott.
Phillips.
And interrupt his conversation once again. 3 weeks from 3, Scott, and doing pretty good out there here tonight. Congratulations on the win here at Phillip Island.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It was good fun. Lob was, geez, he put the pressure on, and I think he saved a little bit of fuel in that first stint. And yeah, the second stint when he got 2.5 seconds clear in that pit stop, gee whiz, we had to push to get onto him. But once you got to him, Dan, it was very difficult on that last turn. Turn 12, just with the understeer from the car. So yeah, that last stint, I knew if I got in front of him, it would be hard for him. He'd have his work cut out, and I might be all right if I didn't make a mistake.
I mean, very true, yeah. We thought that you were going to be a little bit more comfortably out after that second stop. Were you a little concerned when he ended up on your gearbox, basically? Because we thought you had a couple of seconds to the good, really, thanks to the longer stop you took in that first stint back at the end of lap 14. As you said there, he cast it up in the dirty air that you experienced. So maybe not so concerned as we perhaps thought you might have been, given he was able to stick close with you all the way to the end there.
I was a bit worried, because through that first half of the middle stint, I had to push 2.5 seconds to catch back up, and then try and save a little bit of, when I got to around 1.6 seconds off him, then I could save some fuel. Just a little bit, whether it was a leader for the rest of that stint, it sort of makes a difference. But yeah, I was pushing, and he was too, and and Ken was as well. Yeah, it was a tough race and really good fun.
Indeed, it's the kind of stuff we look forward to seeing. After, Laguna Seca, you and Darren going at it. Le Mans, few unfortunately, the tale of up, down, back up again. Ended up working out all right for you in the end, but once again, having to make it work the whole race long here tonight to make it 3 from 3 at the flag to get this season underway. Heading off for our longest race of the season next week at Watkins Glen, 300 kilometres on the table as well. And any thoughts about that kind of pairing, going to the boot layout, so not the short course that we often see these V8s use around there? What do you think that'll do, if that changes the experience at Watkins Glen much?
Yeah, I like the longer layout of Watkins Glen. It's a great track to race on, 300 kilometres. It's going to be awesome. I did miss Watkins Glen, whether it was a cup track last season. We were away, so I've got to haven't raced it for a while, like at least a few seasons. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to it. It's one of those tracks that provides good racing, and it's good fun. There's overtaking opportunities, so it's going to be really good. Going to be tough against these guys as always, but yeah, we'll turn up, do the best we can, Dan.
Well, floor is all yours, Scott. Who do you want to thank for getting it done here once again, and this time tonight at Phillip Island?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the sponsors over at 95 Sim Sports, being RaceKraft Turn-In Apparel, RSW Graphics, Racing Ears, and Prestige Simtography. Big shout out to your guys there over at SimSpeed, Dan. You do a great job. I really enjoy watching not only this broadcast, but all the others that you do. And well done to Darren Lobb and Ken. Congratulations for them on their podium, and a few others as well. Michael, Jeff, Funky, Troy, Chad, Dan, and Christian for the top 10. They drove really well. So yeah, good fun. Thank you very much.
Good to have you as always, Scott. Thank you for all the congratulations there, and look forward to seeing you back out on track next week.
Cheers, mate.
Well, there's our race winner here with us tonight, and looks like Darren Lobb has made it in time to be able to jump straight to him, Brant. I'll bring him into the box, and he's all yours in just a second. We can chat to the man who came home second in the 099.
Darren, well done on the P2 there. Happy, disappointed? How are you feeling about that? Obviously, you drove pretty hard behind Scott in that final stint. Just weren't able to catch him to cross the finish line there.
Ah, yeah, probably disappointed. Those are difficult races to lose when you kind of run 45 laps pretty much flat out and qualifying trim all the way. But yeah, I kind of knew from I've been sick the last few days and haven't been on the sim other than one session at 24 degrees the other night. So when I jumped into into practice and I saw Scott's lap time, I thought, shit, maybe just settle for second place tonight. And when I could kind of run with him that first stint, the draft was keeping me in there. I thought, I've got to do something different to try and jump him and hope something changes up in the race, because otherwise I'm just going to sit in the draft and sit behind him, which is no fun for anyone. So I hoped I'd gone a little bit shorter than him and Ken in that first pit stop, which worked out quite nicely. I should never have given up the 2.6 seconds that he made up on me. And I probably lost about half a second in the lane where I started to splutter down the lane for the second pit stop. And then, that last stint was just balls to the walls, flat out. I had one or two opportunities in hindsight that I probably could have been a little bit more aggressive. But I don't know, what's that saying? To finish first, you must first finish. So I'll take the 0x. Scott had my number this tonight. I'm not enjoying that he's racked up 3 wins and I've racked up 0 this season. I'm going to have to put a bit of work in for the next few races.
Yeah, look, you guys have seen, well, from the 2 rounds that I've commentated so far, you've been absolutely stuck together like super glue. You mentioned there the second stop, you said you lost about half a second trundling down pit lane because you were coughing. But we're anticipating Scott coming out, at least a couple seconds ahead of you for that second stop going into that third and final stint. So were you fuel saving at all in the middle stint there to try and minimise the time lost in pit lane, or how did you make that time up? To come out right on his gearbox in that third and final stint there?
No, I saved a little bit behind him in the first stint. Not a hell of a lot. I think just running in the draft, you're probably saving 0.1, 0.2 a lap. So I think you probably had a little bit of all of that come together in the second stint, and that whatever I'd saved in that first stint, I probably gave away trundling down pit lane. But it's also, I found once you were out front, it was a lot easier to run a good pace. I really battled to follow. It was coming out of the second last corner and the last corner, the car it really struggled. I had no rear traction coming out of the second last corner, which doesn't make sense when you're in the draft. And then just a lot of aero wash. So I think once you get out in front and you get your head down, it's probably where you make up a little bit of time. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a look at JLT to see what our in-laps and our out-laps were, but I pushed pretty damn hard on my in-lap and out-lap. So yeah, I always knew it was going to be a little bit close. I probably had a different idea to you guys in that I thought if we came out nose to tail, that I might have the advantage in the final stint, that he was going to have to save a little bit of fuel in that last stint. But inevitably, I ended up with about 1.5 liters too much fuel. So that 1.5 liters was probably what made the difference to the race. But then again, if I was out in front, I probably would have been half a liter short. So yeah, nice strategic chess match, and have to be a bit better the next time.
It was an absolute pleasure to watch from our end. Do you have anyone else you want to thank? Any sponsors, teammates, etc., etc.?
Yeah, just Team DPR, Barry Manon here in New Zealand from Manon Racing Products, supplies all my sim gear. And you guys, thanks for putting on another great show for all of us and those people watching at home. Look forward to seeing everyone next week.
No, thank you muchly. That was Darren Lobb there, ladies and gentlemen, your second place finisher for tonight's 200 kilometres of Phillip Island.
And that leaves us with one driver left on the podium, at least to chat to here, hopefully in just a second. Ken Ladder, Fishy Motorsports 269. So I'll get him on screen for us here, Brent. Gotta go grab him in the Discord as well. There he is. I'll get him in here now to have a chat with us. And this time, Ken, I'm hoping to not completely crap my internet on us and we can actually have this chat, unlike what happened at Laguna. But another third place tonight is hopefully a good one for you. Unfortunately, there's Scott and Darren seem to just get a little bit ahead and then able to keep ahead of you tonight.
Yeah, I was just in that second stint there and I was hanging on to Scott fairly well, and then I just started locking the brake. It was about 3 or 4 times coming down the hill, and looked at the dead last corner or something, and once I did that, I dropped off him, and then I just I just felt like I must have hurt the tyres a little, and it was enough for him to get away, you know. So
Apologies for my being a little bit confused, but unfortunately, yeah, interesting to hear that. We heard from Scott saying that in the middle stint he was sort of struggling a little bit feeling the understeers in some of the corners, like the last corner in particular. And yeah, just interesting to see that because yeah, had a good qualifying pace there tonight to get it on the front row, as you often do. So yeah, how did the car feel like? Because in the early stint of the race, you were able to stick with them there and ride in that opening trio. How much did the car change from being in clean air versus being up behind the guys in front early on?
well, I think definitely in clean air, like those last that last corner, particularly coming onto the straight, the car tends to stick a bit better and turn in a little bit better leading into the corner. When you're behind someone, you feel like you've got to wait a little before it actually hooks up. I don't know, it might be my imagination, but Scott was sort of saying the same thing. He was doing the same thing with him. So I think the gear ratio we ran tonight was probably a little bit longer than what we normally run, which can have all sort of effects on how quick the car will rotate and how you sort of drive coming in on corners, coming off corners. It's a little bit different. So
I actually is interested in what you bring up there because there's been a couple of times drivers, and we've also you hear on the broadcast, and I've seen the feedback afterwards that drivers sort of been a little concerned about the gear ratio choice, ending up sort of affecting the ability to get an overtake done with slipstream, and then just being able to have the speed to run past, as it were, because in previous situations, yeah, people are saying that the gearing may be a little bit short. So in your opinion, maybe just a little longer this time tonight, maybe just a bit of a change there actually did have that effect on the car. Interesting to hear that.
yeah, I think it definitely did. You know, I mean, if we're running like 1,000, even if you're in draft, you're only just touching the limiter at the end of the straight. You know, where with the longer gearing, you're not even anywhere near it, and particularly with that last corner, you're sort of struggling to get the car rotated exactly where you needed. So it's difficult to make a pass down that back straight anyway, or the front straight.
Interesting to know that one indeed. Well, we'll keep an eye out for how the cars are driving then for the rest of the season in that case, if that little gearing change carries through. But speaking of the season, looking ahead to next week, we head to Watkins Glen for our big 300-kilometre race of the season, and using the longer boot configuration layout as well. Usually we see these cars running the shorter cup course that skips that bottom section of the circuit. Have you run the boot configuration in the V8 before, or will that be something to look forward to and test out over the course of the next week?
No, I've run both. I don't mind either. It doesn't really bother me too much. You know, it's just certain areas of the track, you know, I'll know I need to work on and get that right for the race. We've got to start sort of hopefully getting first or second instead of this third position.
Well, look forward to seeing you out on track in that case, Ken, and indeed, hopefully hear about how it goes. Well, see how it goes, and then chat to you about it afterwards, and hopefully, indeed, look forward to a P2 or a P1 next to your name next week. But before we let you go, who do you want to thank for getting it done tonight in the 269?
Oh, well done to the top two. They raced a brilliant race tonight. Can't fault them. And all the fishy boys, you guys, and Race Control, and our sponsors, West End Motor Group, Infinity Design, DC Shades, Battery Warehouse, Early Beach, Precision, Sim Training, and thank you so much. Cheers.
Well, there we go. Ken Latta, great to have you once again, and thanks for that. Look forward to seeing you out on track next week.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, that's going to do us for tonight, Brant, in terms of the interviews. We were hoping to grab the 666 of Chris Miller and declare him with 11 spots gained, finishing in P6. We are going to nominate him, our Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day in Split 1, and give him a shout out for that one there. Certainly a little tough for us to pick in the end because, I mean, yeah, Robert Crisdale made up the most places tonight in the field, finishing a little further back, though we decided that Funky's position of P6 versus, say, just outside the top 10, P14 for Crisdale. That just tipped the scales here in the favour of the 666.
Yeah, both of those guys drove an absolute stellar race to make up, 32, 33 positions between the pair of them. So, But yeah, Chris finishing in the top 10. Obviously, that's a solid result coming from down towards the rear of the top 20 there. So, well done on Chris. Well deserved. Absolutely phenomenal drive by Rob to make up 20 odd positions as well. That's no mean feat by any stretch of the imagination. So, yeah, well done on everyone. An absolutely another thrilling race. Can Scott make it 4 for 4 next week? Guess we'll wait eagerly to see that. And can anyone really knock these top 3 off their perch? They seem to be the dominant top 3 in the championship at the moment. And yeah, if this is what the season's going to be like, it should be a good battle throughout the rest of the year.
Indeed, it was something that we were sort of hoping we'd see last season. It didn't quite eventuate with schedules and just enjoying life, as it were, for those guys. But looks like we are getting set to lock and load for an absolute cracker of a fight. As we've been saying to the drivers, we come back next Thursday night for our big race of the season, 300 kilometres of action around the Watkins Glen International Circuit. And do note also the time zone change next week. Daylight savings ending for us, at least those of us who are down in the southeastern states this Sunday. So come next Thursday, the 11th of April, it will be Australian Eastern Standard Time, at which we start 8:30 p.m. And just been told, yes, we do have a Chris Miller. So you know what? We'll grab him on screen real quick and we'll have a quick chat to him here, Brant, before we wrap things up for this evening as our Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day. I'll just get everything reconfigured to have it ready to chat with him here and grab him on screen. And we'll get him into the box and have that chat as we were hoping to. I might even hand to you to have that one here to wrap up our interviews for this evening.
Marvellous. Chris, welcome and well done on the drive. The Chubby Buns driver of the night. We've elected to give to you this prestigious honour. So, up 11 spots from P17. So, how was your race? It seemed like you had some pretty solid battles throughout those 11 positions you gained there.
Yeah, no, it was good fun. I saved a lot at the start, so just trying to save as much fuel as I could, and then yeah, just the opportunity came and I made a couple of overtakes, which was good. Plenty of room given, which is, yeah, it was a good race.
So with that, how much fuel did you manage to save within the within that first stint? Were you drastically fuel saving, or were you just utilizing the draft of the cars in front to kind of just sit there and play that long game, which obviously you elected to do?
Yeah, no, I was doing about 2.93 max.
Yeah, wow.
So,
okay.
So I was clutching all the way through turn 1, clutching into Miller Corner, clutching just before you get to Lukey Heights. So yeah, just trying to save as much as I could. I was practicing it during the week. So yeah, but then and then at the end, when I was putting fuel in, I thought, I'll just take a couple of litres out. And then yeah, I wish I'd have left a couple of litres in, because I had to save a bit towards the end. That middle stint, I went flat out, and then the last stint, I had to save about 1.5 litres, I think, to get home. So, but I was chasing down Jeff Thomas, and I was getting close. I was closing in on him, and then I just had to lift and do a bit more saving, which was unfortunate. But hey, them the brakes.
Well, look, you're still, Dan, I think the lowest you had on the screen there was, 3.16 or something litres a lap. So to be around that low 2.9 range, that's an absolute phenomenal effort to save that much and still not really be affected overall. So I think with that P6, definitely well deserved for that strategy play. So well done on that. Do you have anyone else you'd like to thank? Obviously, any sponsors, teams, friends, family?
Absolutely. First and foremost, all the boys at Fishies. Yeah, we were mucking around during the week doing some race runs, which was a lot of fun. So the team, first and foremost, obviously the family, and please don't tell the wife how much I paid for the sim rig. And then sponsors are West End Motor Group, Infinity Designs, DC Shades, Battery Warehouse, Early Beach, and Precision Sim Training.
Well, Well done again on the Chubby Buns driver of the day. Well deserved. Dans, do you have any questions for Chris before we let him go?
I think that wraps up quite nicely indeed. And yeah, the fact that you're calling a sub 3 litre fuel number, yeah, we looked at 3.16 as being saving 2 laps over the average burn. So you're looking at saving more like 4 to 5 laps. If I can do my
it
math
certainly
of that
helped
right,
in the
yeah.
draft, that's for sure. Like those first few laps, I wasn't interested in overtaking, but then the boss said I better hurry up, so I did. So, but in the draft, yeah, it was pretty easy because you could just sort of clutch right in and late brake and just stay with the pack. So it was good.
Yeah, very true indeed. Yeah, drafting fuel numbers is always going to be something that probably throws my pre-race stuff for an absolute loop. But once again, doing a nice job there indeed. Well, thanks for chatting with us here, Chris, tonight, and look forward to seeing you out on track hopefully next week when the series heads to Watkins Glen.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate everything you do, and obviously all the committee and vets and everyone involved in it. It's a great series, and you boys do it justice by broadcast.
Much appreciated there, Chris. Well, thanks for joining us here to wrap things up tonight, and have yourself a good evening.
I will. I'll go back to my sleeping chair.
Very nice.
See you, boys.
See ya.
Indeed. Well, with that said and done, I believe we'll call that one there for night indeed. Great bit of racing from everyone here in Split 1 for the RaceKraft Veterans V8 Vets Championship, and congratulations to Scott Gamble for walking away with another race win here this evening. And well, Brant, on behalf of you and I here for SimSpeed TV, big shout out also to RaceKraft Simulations, the title sponsor for the V8 Veterans in 2024, Player One Sim Gear, Nova Sim Sports, Logitech G, Parramatta Isuzu Ute, and Chubby Buns Burgers. Hope you all enjoyed the broadcast here tonight from Phillip Island, and hope you're looking forward to being with us here for round number 4 next week from Watkins Glen International. Until then, have a good week. We'll catch you in the next one.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.